How do I reverse all this? How do I reverse the joining? Is it something one person can do? No! Stop! Stop! Some kind of medicine! Tell me what it is. Tell me. Tell me!
There's a moment in every story about the end of the world where the silence becomes louder than the danger. A moment when the question shifts from what happened to what can we possibly do now? That moment arrived the second Carol pressed a syringe into her arm, whispered a line that felt both brave and broken, and changed the course of the war against the joining. Now, around the world, people are asking the same question. Can the joining be reversed? And if so, how? Tonight we go deeper than theories, deeper than fear, deeper than the soft, haunting echoes of the hive mind whispering please, Carol in unison. Because if the joining can be undone, the key is hidden somewhere inside the chain of events set loose in episode 4. In the injection, in the collapse, in the new survivor discovered in Paraguay, and in the quiet places where the joined gather with smiles that are too perfect to trust. Before episode 4, the joining felt untouchable. Something organic, spiritual, unstoppable. But when Carol injected sodium thiopental into her own bloodstream, then slid a higher dose into Zosia's IV, everything we thought we knew about the hive shattered in a single catastrophic moment. Her heartbeat slowed, her breath flattened, and outside the hospital room, the joined began to cry. Really cry. Not the polite, serene tears of their curated harmony, but raw, terrified sobs. And all of them at the exact same moment whispered the same desperate plea. Please, Carol. It was fear. It was pain. It was connection. And above all, it was proof. Proof that the joining has a physical substrate. Proof that the hive mind can be disrupted. Proof that the right chemical, the right trigger, the right shock might actually uncouple the joined from whatever binds them. But the truth is not simple. And in the ashes of that moment, 3 theories now dominate the global conversation. 3 pathways to undo the joining, each with its own logic, its own risks, and its own haunting possibilities. We begin with the one that episode 4 placed right in front of our eyes. The first theory is the one Carol stumbled into, the idea that the joining is, at its core, a specific neurological synchronization, a coordinated pattern of brainwaves or neurotransmitters held in place by the viral agent. If a drug can alter those patterns, then maybe it can break them. Sodium thiopental, the so-called truth serum, is a GABA-enhancing barbiturate. It slows neural firing. It unravels inhibitions. It melts the boundaries between conscious control and unfiltered instinct. And when Carol used it on Zosia, it didn't just make her talk. It cracked open something deep inside the hive. Zosia's collapse was not just an overdose. Episodes don't focus on a chemical detail by accident. Her collapse was a systemic failure, a misalignment, a fissure in the network that joined her to the others. The hive felt it, and they wept. Imagine for one moment what that means. A single agent delivered in a single dose triggered a cascade powerful enough to ripple through dozens of joined individuals. That is not just a symptom, it is a vector. It is a lever with the capacity to move the whole machinery of the hive. If sodium thiopental causes destabilization, other agents might push further, control desynchronization, reversible uncoupling, or perhaps even a complete severing of the joining's hold. But chemicals are blunt instruments. The line between liberation and death is razor thin. Carol's near-fatal experiment proved that. And so, while the pharmacological theory is grounded in evidence, it is also soaked in risk. A cure that kills is not a cure. It is a final act of surrender. Still, the possibility is real, and it sets the stage for the second theory, one born not from collapse, but from survival. Theory 2 is immunogenetic resistance. While Carol was testing chemicals in a hospital room, thousands of miles away, another clue emerged. A survivor named Manusos, living alone in a metal storage unit in Paraguay, surrounded by nothing but silence and static. He is different. He is immune. one of the only known humans whose body rejected the joining entirely. And in stories like this, immunity is never random, not narratively, not biologically. Immunity means a pattern, and patterns can be studied. This theory proposes that the joining requires certain receptors, proteins, or neural pathways that Manuso simply does not possess. His cells do not accept the viral signal, his brain does not synchronize, his body does not surrender. The implications are enormous. If his blood contains antibodies, they could be isolated. If his genes contain resistance markers, they could be sequenced. If his immune profile contains unusual T-cell responses, they could be replicated. In other words, the key to reversing the joining could be hiding inside a single frightened man with a shortwave radio and a lifetime of trauma. But immunity is not a switch. It is a symphony. Decoding it takes time, the very thing humanity no longer has. And the danger is obvious. If the joining adapts, it may learn to override even the resistant ones. A cure built from a single immune person may be fragile, temporary, vulnerable. Still, this theory carries a strange, aching hope, because if one person can resist the joining entirely, then the human body is not helpless. The virus is not absolute, and the hive is not inevitable. But what if the joining is not only biological? What if something else is maintaining it? Like something invisible, something environmental, something carried through the air like a whisper you can hear but cannot escape. That takes us to the third most controversial theory. Theory 3 is signal disruption. There is a reason the camera lingers on Manusos's radio equipment, a reason the frame holds on the static, on the faint oscillations buried in the noise. The best stories hide their clues in plain sight. This theory argues that the joining is not merely a viral coupling. It is a network phenomenon, sustained or amplified by an external carrier signal, a pulse, a frequency, a subtle broadcast that guides the hive's emotional alignment and enforces its synchronized behavior. If that is true, then the joining is not just a biological infection, it is a transmission, and transmissions can be jammed. Imagine a world where the hive mind depends on a narrow band of frequencies, something barely perceptible to human ears, but powerful enough to bind minds together. Imagine that Manuso sits in his bunker because he can hear something the joined cannot. A harmonic distortion, a background resonance, a pattern in the static. Imagine that his radio equipment is not a hobby, but a shield. If a signal sustains the joining, then disrupting that signal, even briefly, could cause the hive to fracture. For a moment, a second, a heartbeat, a window long enough for chemicals or immune mechanisms to take hold. The theory is terrifying, because if a signal exists, someone is broadcasting it, and that means the joining may not be a natural evolution. It may be engineered, but theories are only theories until they collide with evidence, until they face the weight of everything we have seen, everything we have learned, and everything that episode 4 left behind, like breadcrumbs in the wreckage of Zosia's collapse. Now it is time to choose the path that stands above the rest. The truth, as always, lies in what the story itself shows us, not in the whispers, not in the guesses, but in the deliberate choices the creators place onto the screen. Carol injects a chemical, and the hive reacts instantly. Manusos lives in isolation, and his body rejects the joining entirely. A radio crackles in the night, and the tone shifts, so subtle you almost doubt you heard it. Each theory holds weight, each has evidence, each could explain part of the puzzle, but only one theory explains everything, from the chemical collapse, to the emotional resonance of the join, to the eerie unity of their plea. Please, Carol. Echoing through the halls like a shared heartbeat struggling to stay alive. The joining is not just biological, it is not just immunological, it is not just a signal, it is hybrid, a triad of biology, neurology, and communication, woven together like threads in a single overwhelming tapestry. And because it is hybrid, the most plausible reversal is also hybrid, but one element stands at the center, one lever moves the others. One moment in episode 4 changed the rules of the entire world with a single plunge of a syringe. The pharmacological theory, Theory 1 is the strongest, not because it is safe, not because it is simple, but because it is repeatable, controllable, measurable, and already proven on screen to disrupt the Hive. Chemicals can weaken the joining, immunity can guide the search for safer compounds, and signal disruption can amplify their effect. But the spark, the catalyst, the first door humanity can actually open is chemical. The joining can be reversed. The first step is pharmacological desynchronization, and Carol already took it. If the joining can be broken, the question becomes, what does breaking it cost? Every cure is a choice. Every choice is a sacrifice. And in episode 4, Carol stood at that crossroads and chose to take the risk no one else would dare. Somewhere out there, the joined continue their slow, synchronized march toward a future they believe is peaceful. Somewhere in Paraguay, Manusos listens to the static that saved his life. And somewhere in a dim hospital room, the echo of that final whisper, "Please, Carol," still hangs in the air like a warning, or a blessing, or both. The cure exists, but it will not come gently. And when the time comes to use it, the world will have to decide who to save first, and who to save last.